Welcome and thank you for listening to the DFRI podcast. Your ongoing support help us to continue promoting great employee relations in the workplace. Visit dfrihr.com/free trial and allow us to answer your questions free for 30 days. Welcome everyone once again to this episode of the DFRI podcast. So today we're going to touch base a bit on employee orientation and discussing how formal or informal in actual new employee orientation really have to be. So some employers spend a lot of time and effort wowing job candidates, but when the individuals actually report for the first day of work, they find themselves to be forgotten souls. Now, this may not be intentional, but there may be no one designated to make the employee feel welcome. They may be placed at desk with no instructions on how to use the computer that is in front of them, for instance, or as far as passwords are concerned, or told to follow a peer who has no conception of how to orient the newcomer. And of course, I'm sure everyone probably have this situation where it's absolutely embarrassing and frustrating for people to attempt to make a call on an unfamiliar phone system when they were never told they had to dial an access number first. So all organizations should have an orientation process in place, whether structured or unstructured, to provide essential knowledge and information about working at the company and to increase the comfort level of nervous new hires. New employees want to learn more about the business and philosophy of the company, as well as how to get things done within an unfamiliar system. And therefore, a standard orientation checklist would ensure consistency and the introductory process. Now, whether you choose to have a structured orientation or not, on the first day of work, it's recommended to designate someone to greet the new employee and cover those items that are essential to the transition to the organization. And this can very well include a tour of the work area, introduction to co-workers, and information about keys, ID cards, restrooms, break areas, and entrances and exits. You may also want to review and discuss the job description one more time and the expectations and short-term goals. And other aspects of the new hire orientation can also cover details about the work area, how to use a telephone, computer, email system, and company intranet with appropriate access and instructions. Lunch and breaks with coworkers or managers to answer questions and begin relationships with others in the company is usually a good starting point, and of course depending on the position. And of course, meeting many new people at once can be overwhelming for new hires. So it's essential to present them with schedules that include the names and contact information of all the people they are scheduled to spend time with on the first day. If you assign a peer to work hand in hand with the new hire during the first day or so, I recommend to choose a good communicator who understands the information that needs to be delivered and actually enjoys sharing knowledge with others and can document the information correctly. You find many employers may be tempted to select their best employee for this task, but this person may not always be your best trainer. So it's good to keep that in mind. At the end of the day, it's important that someone, preferably the manager, spend some time with the individual and review the day's experiences. This conversation, of course, is likely to highlight any gaps that need to be addressed and contribute to a climate of good communication. First days are always tough, providing closure and consideration. This will make the employee feel a bit more valued. Now, again, speaking of structure and, of course, different levels in the organization may very well have different types of new hire orientation. The way that you deliver orientation for your salaried employees or a higher tiered employees may be very different from the way you do orientation for line employees or hourlies if you choose to refer to them that way. And of course, the amount of structure that is involved is completely up to the organization. You may think that your company is too small or that you don't hire enough people at the same time to have a structured orientation. However, an effective orientation can be so beneficial to the company that you should not use company size as an excuse to omit this process. A structured orientation will make it easier for you to provide information and answer questions that could avoid future confusion about company policies, goals, operating procedures, and employee benefits. For instance, no employees will have the opportunity to meet and form relationships with new hires in different work areas or functions. Employees who participate in well-designed orientations learn that their company is willing to invest in them and receive a consistent message about the company culture. So, needless to say, orientations can take many forms. They can be formal or informal in tone. You can choose to conduct them in a classroom format or in an office with only one or two people. You do not have to hold the meeting on an employee's first day of work. And of course, you may want to wait until you have a larger group to train or to avoid causing first day information overload. In any event, you should invite employees to an orientation meeting within a reasonable period of time. I recommend no more than a month or two after they join the company. Waiting at least a few days or weeks allows workers to learn more about the organization and ask some insightful questions other than where is the ladies' room. So a sound orientation program has several key elements that can be implemented in there. For companies that are in heavy manufacturing or construction, safety is a very key part of the discussion that should not be ignored throughout the orientation. And of course, you have an explanation and discussion of the company's goals, mission and vision, marketing efforts, advertising samples, if that's appropriate for the employees that have been orientated, introduction of key employees and top executives, a review of the company's history and structure and your organizational chart, the employee handbook, and other key policies are also great areas to introduce during that time. So some companies may also find it appropriate to include training on service to external customers and fellow employees, government regulations, or any other topic that is relevant in your industry or company. So again, the way you go about conducting the orientation is completely up to the culture of the organization. And as far as how formal or informal it is, depends on the company and what type of employees are being introduced at the time. So it is therefore the main area we want to avoid is ignoring the orientation process in general. But as far as how structured, formal or informal we want it to be is completely up to the organization and how either process is more likely to meet their needs.
Amazon bestsellers, The Development Alternative, and The Line Manager are now available for corporate discount on bulk orders. To get your copies now, call 877-803-3486.